Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about September 11th and the early 2000s and how the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001 fundamentally changed a lot of things in America. So, we had talked about yesterday, typical politics, all this other stuff. George W. Bush is elected in 2000, so he's sworn in early 2001, and everything's pretty normal throughout most of 2001. And then September 11th, 2001 happens. So, let me back up. Oh. So to give you a general idea, so today, the way I'm going to do it is there's so much more media today that I have a lot of video clips that do a really good job of explaining this in a very absolute way with a lot of visual images. So a lot of this I'm going to, I've cut up these videos to show it to you the best way possible. Trying something a little different rather than me always trying to explain it to you. I am going to explain it to you and I'm going to be here the whole time. But I'm going to let you watch these videos and I may pause the videos and explain to you what's happening. And I think that's going to be pretty effective because there's so much change that's going to happen so quickly in America here going forward up to present day. You got to kind of know what's going on. All right, so here's the major players here with September 11th, 2001 when we were attacked. All right. People don't like America. A lot of people in the Middle East don't like America. If it seems it's like along religious lines, it goes back to Israel, which is some issues, some extremist Muslim groups don't like America because we allow Israel to exist. All right. Claiming that all Muslims are terrorists is the same thing of saying all Christians are in the KKK. Same thing, because the KKK is a Christian organization. All right, so everybody in the KKK, they're all Christians, but that doesn't mean all Christians are in the KKK. So when you talk about these extremists coming from the Middle East, they're almost all Muslim, but it's such a small percentage, just like the KKK is, you can't make those comparisons back and forth. I want to clarify that first and foremost. Secondly, there's this guy named Osama bin Laden. All right, so Osama bin Laden is a very wealthy guy who is a terrorist. He literally funds terrorism. It's like Shark Tank. If you have a good terrorist idea but can't pay for it, take it to Osama bin Laden and he will fund it. This is exactly what happens on September 11th, 2001. Group of crazy people, I'm just going to simplify it, I'm not going to give them too much credit, that are actually from Saudi Arabia. So these extremists are actually from a country that we have a good relationship with. That they decide they want to attack America, how they're going to come over here, they're going to learn to be pilots, hijack planes, crash into buildings, attack America because they don't like who we are as people. They take this idea to Osama bin Laden. So Osama bin Laden, all right, and I got a picture of Osama bin Laden here, all right. This is September 11th attacks that we're getting ready to talk about. I'm going on the assumption y'all have heard of this before. All right, it's kind of big. This is Osama bin Laden. So Osama bin Laden, he has a terrorist organization called Al-Qaeda. All right. So these group of terrorists, they go to Osama bin Laden. Now, at the time, Osama bin Laden is living in a country called Afghanistan. They go to Osama bin Laden. It's like, hey, we got this plan to attack America. What you think? He's like, yes. And he is going to fund these people to come over to America. They have no criminal record. All right. So they come over to America. No flags go off. There's no question. They train to be pilots in America. And then they hijack planes on September 11th, 2001 and attack buildings in the United States. So I got video clips. I'm going to try to teach you a little differently today. So this is a video clip of the attacks of September 11th. And play.
The skyline of New York City, dominated by the World Trade Center. Tourists took the elevator up 115 floors to marvel at the rooftop views. It was the workplace of some 20,000 people. Then came September the 11th. An aircraft flew out of the sky at full speed and crashed into the South Tower.
So I want to clarify because this is how I want to teach today to point it out. If you see, this one has already been, the North Tower has been hit. You guys, if I'm doing my math right, y'all weren't born. Wow. Okay. I knew this was coming. I'd get old enough to where people weren't even alive when September 11th happened. So I was a little older than y'all. I was a freshman in college. So I'd been in college, it's September 11th, so I've been in college like 3 weeks. And so I woke up in the morning. I lived in a suite, which means there's 4 bedrooms, 2 guys to each room, and like a little hallway, and we all share a bathroom. My roommate was already up, one of my suite mates was up, screaming the Nazis are bombing the Empire State Building. He's an idiot. Highly successful now, though, but I knew him before he was. So I walk into his room, like, this is early in the morning. So I walk into his room. I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm watching, and so there is some footage they've gotten later on of seeing the first plane hit of somebody that was like videoing on the ground. But I went in and saw, like, I don't know why I'm pointing to it on the screen. I saw this here, all right? So that's on the screen. Like, all the news is focused on it, that a plane has hit the World Trade Center. It's hard to understand how big these buildings are. They are a city block. Each floor is about the size of Davie High School. All right? And there's 110 floors stacked on top of each other, and there's 2 buildings. It's the most monumental buildings you would have ever seen in your entire life. They're absolutely enormous. Doesn't do it justice. So the scope of it is it hitting everybody at first. It looks like, oh my gosh, like, this is obviously a tragedy. Can't believe this happened. So all the videos, all the news cameras are focused on this building where a plane has hit it. Nobody knows if it's an accident, what's going on. Oh my gosh. Like, so all the video cameras are pointing at this building, and then everybody sees the second one happen. The moment they see this, what they just showed, when they see the second one happen, everybody knows it's a terrorist attack, and it is like everybody's heart drops, like, what is happening?
When the second plane hit, there was no question. This was terrorism on a scale the world had never seen before. Inside those towers that Tuesday morning, thousands had just arrived for work. The infernos caused by aviation fuel explosions were weakening the steel frames of the building. The North Tower collapsed horrifically to the ground, taking hundreds of helpless people with it. The dust clouded.
All right. There are too many conspiracy theories with this thing, and about people are so shocked by there's all these conspiracy theories because they watch something on YouTube. First off, the buildings are designed to come straight down like that. That's literally how they were designed when they were built in the 70s. They have to come straight down. If it falls over, it takes out like all of New York City. They're designed to do that. It's like cars are designed to crumple. It's designed to do that. This conspiracy that rocket fuel or jet fuel or plane fuel or fuel in general can't melt steel is just, it's like flat earthers. It absolutely can. How do you think steel is made? Like, it melts, it gets weaker, it collapses, and then it collapses on itself. There were no demolition yet. Are things blowing out at the sides? 100%, because it's designed to do that. It's like crumple zones. I love some conspiracy theories. This isn't one. This absolutely caught us off guard. And while America has done some stuff before, which like, hey, do we allow this to happen or whatever? This is not one, because every other time you can ever make the argument that America may have like allowed ourselves to be attacked so we can retaliate, or we've poked them with a stick. We had a clear-cut plan of retaliation that at the end benefited America in a very clear way. None of that's going to take place. That, on top of the fact that the United States can't put up a website that can have everybody sign up for health insurance, but we can organize one of the most complex natural disasters or terrorist attacks in the biggest city on earth with nobody knowing about it and pull it off perfectly. Come on, man. Like, anyway, I'm not a conspiracy theory with this stuff, but when it says that they fell down, they absolutely did. The rocket fuel weakened the steel in the buildings. If you've never heard those conspiracy theories, don't worry about it. But there's always one. It's like, oh no, steel can't be melted with rocket fuel. Yeah, it can. It literally can.
Swallowed up lower Manhattan. A scene from the apocalypse.
here, right here. Just stay right here.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. I left this in here because I don't think you may have never seen this wall of dust coming through, but it's ingrained in anybody who lived through its mind.
Come on in. Come on in. Yes. Thank you.
Within 20 minutes, the South Tower also crumbled to the ground. Among those who died, more than 200 were firefighters. In Washington, another passenger plane had been flown into the Pentagon. More than 100 people lost their lives there. A fourth plane would come down in Pennsylvania after the passengers apparently had fought with the hijackers.
These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos
George
and
Bush.
retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong.
So that is the September 11th attacks. There are 4 planes. One went down. The next, so 3 hit their targets. The fourth one was just going towards the White House. By that point, everybody knew what was happening, that there had been 3 other planes that had been terrorist attacks, and they know their plane had been hijacked. So this Flight 92, as heroes, they overpowered the terrorists. They tried to direct the plane, but it crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. That plane was going towards the White House. However, even had it hit the White House, the president and vice president were not there at the time. So this video here is going to talk more about our immediate response after September 11th, like on that day of like, all right, what are we going to do right after it happens? So the focus on the CIA there isn't. This is a video clip talking like specifically looking at the CIA, but the fact that immediately afterwards, Osama bin Laden comes out and takes credit for it. He's like, "I did it. What you want?" And we're like, "It's go time." Like America, we were shocked for a couple weeks. I mean, we mobilized pretty quick, but I remember the shock of just like, how could this happen? So once he was like, yeah, I did it. We're like, it's go time. Now, Osama bin Laden is hanging out in Afghanistan. So we want to go get him. Well, his terrorist organization is called Al-Qaeda. Their government in Afghanistan is called the Taliban. So we tell the Taliban, hey, we're coming in to get him. And Afghanistan's like, no, you're not. We like him. And we're like, you're on our list too. So the fact that Afghanistan is willing to protect Osama bin Laden, that's all we need. And it's going to be go time on Afghanistan. So Afghanistan is connected to 9/11 because that's where Osama bin Laden is. We're going to go in there and get him. And Afghanistan says, no, you're not. And we're like, all right, tough cookies. Here we come anyway. And that was it. That was it with Afghanistan. Matter of weeks. Hey, we blew them all up. Taliban's wiped out. We've destroyed everything. Yeah. We can't find Osama bin Laden. We are still really worked up. I mean, it's like the same. I mean, it's been like 6 weeks later. Like, they're still trying to clean up rubble from September 11th, and this war is over. Like what are you talking? Like, there is no sense of closure. America, we're like I've been watching too much Tiger King. Like, we're like an angry tiger. Carol Baskins. But we want to attack. Like, we are war fever, man. It is like we have so much more anger to take out on, and Afghanistan didn't fight back enough for us to so we wiped out it. We blew all their rocks around because it's a lot of mountainous rocky region. We just blew rocks around all we wanted. Couldn't find Osama bin Laden. All right, we're not going to find him for like a decade, and that's a whole second story with that one. But so we're just really angry now. So there's some policies that are going to take place in America, all right, that are very knee-jerk reaction. All right, the first one here, and this is not really considered controversial as much. This is a Homeland Security. So Homeland Security is a department that is going to get created right after this, and this is going to be a video of George Bush talking about why Homeland Security is important. So Homeland Security is a new cabinet level position. it authorizes and encourages people to interact with each other. It's almost like an all-seeing eye, like kind of connects the FBI, the CIA, and everything inside the United States. As he's going to talk about more of the stuff like, oh, hospitals need to work with this, like small towns need to work together, have an interconnected stuff. It's more stuff like Homeland Security is a focused effort. If you commit a crime in Arizona and they have fingerprints in that local police station, did you know that if you committed a crime in like Colorado, they may never, like, it's not in the same database, just completely separate. So you could have committed crimes in all these different states and they would never know it's the same person if you're like with the same fingerprints. Homeland Security is like, that's how terrorists can move around. We have to be better communicate throughout America. So we need to like have one database for everybody's fingerprints and stuff like that and be able to more easily communicate. We realize there's just gaps in our communication and our ability to work together that will allow terrorists to slip through the cracks. That's the belief. So we're going to create the Department of Homeland Security, which helps us get a more cohesive concept of intelligence in the United States that can work directly to try to prevent another terrorist attack. But this is him talking about some of the benefits of what he wants Homeland Security to be able to do. And Homeland Security still exists today. It's a department level cabinet position.
The truth of the matter is Homeland Security in the heartland is just as important as Homeland Security in the big cities. And that's what we're here to talk about today. To make sure that America is safe. See, that's my most important job. My most important job is to work with federal, state, and local officials to prevent the enemy from hitting us again and taking innocent life. The first responders of America, all across America, must have the resources necessary to respond to emergencies and save lives.
The president has proposed that smaller communities combine their resources and share the task of tackling terrorism.
If one town's got them a good hospital facility, another may be able to lend fire trucks, a third may be a home to hazardous material experts. But we got to develop these mutual pacts so that we can coordinate efforts, pool resources, all aimed at helping a neighbor in need if we need to.
So that's Homeland Security. Still around today, it just kind of helps. It's kind of like a combination of FBI and CIA, but it's more of streamlining intelligence to make sure everybody can communicate with each other and we know what's going on. The more... Oh, let me not get too far ahead. All right, it just starts with the black screen. The much more controversial one is going to be the Patriot Act. So the Patriot Act, everybody's like, yeah, we got to stop terrorism. And they turn around and they pass this law called the Patriot Act, which says it's legal for the United States government to spy on citizens in order to prevent another terrorist attack. Now, this gets controversial because how many rights are people willing to give up for safety? All right. So the United States government with the Patriot Act has the right to look through all your cell phone messages, listen on your phone calls without having a warrant. If they can say they're doing it, if they can say that they're doing it to try to stop terrorism. All right. All they say, oh, I'm trying to stop terrorism, and they get complete and total ability to go through and do it for the most part. So we're like, yeah, let's stop terrorism. I mean, there's all types of stuff that came out to stop terrorism. But it comes to a constitutional question. Is this allowed? Is it okay for the federal government to take people's privacy from them without their consent in the name of keeping them safe? And people are usually divided on both sides of this. But this is a video clip talking about the Patriot Act that gets passed right after September 11th. Of the people who are, I think most of these people are talking about why it's not necessarily a great idea. I think there's a couple of people here in this short video clip that support it.
The name the USA Patriot Act sounds good on the cover, but as soon as you turn the page, you realize that there's some dangerous stuff going on, and it's not just the Patriot Act.
How do we defeat the enemy without becoming the enemy ourselves? We do that by steadfastly adhering to the rule of law, both the constitutional authority of individual actors within our democratic system, and also the rule of civilized conduct of war.
Is our country safer today? I don't know how anybody can argue, oh no, it's not safer today. The proof is in the pudding. Have we had another terrorism attack? No, we haven't.
As American citizens, we have these rights. They are inalienable rights. And yet we now are at a time where, by a decision by the president to say, you are a bad American, you are an enemy combatant, I am going to remove your most essential rights. That's not in the Constitution. That is not in the Constitution. That is a critically mistaken grab of power.
Time after time, the question of civil liberties has been challenged during periods of threat. And when we've looked back at those periods, very often we've been embarrassed by the results of the diminution of civil liberties during those periods. And we've then had to struggle to reestablish the normalcy of civil liberties.
So the Patriot Act, everybody's kind of like, wait a minute. Like, one is like, yeah, let's stop the terrorism. They're like, wait a minute, you can spy on me now? And so the government like now has that right with the United States Patriot Act. And we're like, that's good, right? Right? Is it? Can they just like stalk you if they want to? And that's still a debate today. But the United States government now has that right to spy on you without you knowing it, just to see what you're up to, as long as it's in theory, as long as they think there might be something terrorist related, or it might give them more information on terrorists. So the Patriot Act is obviously controversial, but we have by spying on people, we have stopped terrorist attacks. That is verifiable. So with people losing privacy, it just comes down to, is it acceptable to give up that much freedom for safety? And where is that line at, and where are we comfortable with it? So all of that is what happens. And then is the war in Iraq. Keep in mind, we're still months after September 11th. It's now 2002, and we are like there's just somebody's going to catch our fury. Who's it going to be? Well, it's going to be Iraq. Iraq had nothing to do with September 11th. They had nothing to do with September 11th. However, we're going to choose them as the country that we're going to go after because we think it is now our job, instead of sit back and react to terrorist attacks, we have to prevent future terrorist attacks from happening. And we view Saddam Hussein as a bad guy. We'd already fought him 10 years earlier with Kuwait. He's still in power. He's a jerk. And this video that I've cut up, it's like a 30-minute video, and I've cut it down to about 2.5 minutes, I believe, kind of shows you the totality of this war we get into, and it does not go according to plan at all. No, not that one. What we got here?
America's war policy changed to one of preemption to possible threats. Saddam Hussein, Iraq's dictator, had used weapons of mass destruction against his neighbors and on his own people. Fearing that he could be a conduit of these catastrophic weapons to terrorists, the U.S. then demanded Iraq stop production of all weapons of mass destruction and give UN weapons inspectors access to weapons production facilities. Iraq refused to comply. In his 2003 State of the Union address to Congress, Bush, citing British intelligence sources, told the nation that Saddam had sought uranium for nuclear weapons. The British government had...
Very important here. George W. Bush is getting ready to tell everybody that Iraq not only already has weapons of mass destruction, which is called WMDs for short, not only they have them, they're trying to make nuclear weapons of mass destruction, all right? And that you absolutely, and they terrify America. They think not only is he going to create weapons of mass destruction, or he already has weapons of mass destruction, he's also going to try to create nukes, and he's going to give them to terrorists. He is such a bad guy. We have to go and attack him right now. He hasn't even done anything to us. We got to go attack him now to keep it from happening. This is what gets told and convinced to the American people in 2003. He has weapons of mass destruction. We have to go stop him right now. If we let him last another week or 2 weeks, who knows who he's going to give these weapons to? And then the next thing that happens in New York City is we get nuked. That is literally the view in America at the time.
Learned that Saddam Hussein recently sought significant quantities of uranium from Africa.
On March 20th, a coalition of forces launched the first preemptive strike in U.S. history. Bush and his other advisors, Cheney, Rumsfeld, and Rice, believed they could ignore these 2 points because the Iraqis would welcome the U.S. as a liberator and spontaneously embrace democracy as a new form of government. At first, the war did go well. Baghdad fell in just 33 days. President Bush proclaimed to the American people that the war was over.
I want to point out before he sits here and talks, 33 days. We invaded Iraq. We blew up all their stuff. They don't mention it here in the video. We catch Saddam Hussein. Now, his own people didn't like Saddam Hussein. We capture Saddam Hussein, give him to his own people. His own Iraqi people put Saddam Hussein on trial, and they execute him. This all happens like right at the start of the, like, this is it. Like, war's over. No, this war's going to last another decade. So here we're declaring victory, and it gets bad pretty quick. We weren't expecting the war to turn the way it does really after this speech.
Operation Iraqi Freedom was carried out with a combination of precision and speed and boldness the enemy did not expect and the world had not seen before.
However, the war that was supposed to be over quickly soon turned into a drawn-out occupation. The supposed WMDs were never found.
Hear that? They never found them. And then listen to this. If you didn't live through it, this just seems crazy.
In 2004, the Bush administration was forced to admit that they had never existed.
Did you hear that? Why did we go to war in Iraq? Because they have weapons of mass destruction. A year later, yeah, we lied about that. Our bad. Like, we literally just made up an entire reason to go to war. Why? Why? And that's still a question. Like, it seems so baffling. We were so angry after September 11th. Somebody had to catch our fury. Saddam Hussein's a bad guy. We like made up an entire reason to go invade him. We have a new Vietnam now. I mean, it's just like Vietnam. We're in a country. They no longer want us there. We took out Saddam Hussein. We thought they were going to be liberators. It ain't going to go well because there's two versions of Muslims in Iraq called the Sunnis and the Shiites that both want to take over. And a civil war breaks out in Iraq over who gets to run it, and America's stuck in the middle. All while back home, people are protesting the war now because they're like, wait a minute, the whole reason we went in was these weapons of mass destruction. Now you're telling us that not only do they not exist and you never found them, you knew from the beginning it never happened. This is where
the Americans began to protest the war. Just like in Vietnam, it was impossible to tell the enemy from the good guys. The Iraq War boiled over into a civil war between competing branches of Islam, Sunni and Shiite, with Americans caught in the middle. America will recover from this war, but the judgment of whether the war was a success or failure will be left to future generations of Americans to decide.
So I skipped over a lot because this video ends up being a real, in my opinion, gets kind of political. That is not necessary here. It is absolutely astounding. So why don't we just come home? Same reason in Vietnam. Because if we just come home, we have literally destabilized Iraq in the middle of the Middle East, and that wouldn't be good. We're eventually going to decide to come home, and we just leave. Afghanistan's still in crumbles. Iraq is in crumbles. You know what group comes back and actually rebuilds, and for the first time in 10 years, because this war's going to last up until tomorrow. We're going to talk, or not tomorrow, but next time I see you, we're going to talk about Obama. That when Obama takes this over, he ends up deciding finally we're just going to bring everybody home. We bring everybody home. When we bring everybody home, and everybody's like, good, I'm so tired of this war. It's going for 10 years. We lost, whatever, just moving on. ISIS is what goes and takes over and causes a whole nother issue because ISIS preys on weak people and we had left them weak. So not only does ISIS take over, everybody blames us for it and they're not wrong. So, man, the war in Iraq was a massive mistake. Massive mistake. And there's no good cut and dried reason why we went other than we were just angry after September 11th, even though Iraq had nothing to do with September 11th. All right, so that is as far as we're going to get. I will catch up with you guys.